There has recently been an increase in the use of space assets for military operations. Given the extensive use of space-based resources by both combating parties, the Russia-Ukraine conflict is the most important development in the field of space since 2022. Unprecedented levels of openness on the Ukrainian battlefield, according to a space threat assessment by an American think tank. Images indicated the gathering of Russian soldiers. Sensitive intelligence was declassified to reveal Moscow's plans and objectives, and social media posts depicted the close-up horrors of the battle. Space assets are assisting in this transparency and significantly aiding in this conflict, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies (SISE) evaluation, which looked closely at Russian counter-space actions. Satellite communications enable Ukrainian forces to link the country's citizens to the outside world. Imagery satellites are monitoring the movement of Russian forces, mapping routes for humanitarian evacuation, and gathering proof of war crimes. Some of these satellites can pass through clouds and acquire images at night. The 56-page evaluation, published on April 14, found that other satellites can identify and pinpoint the sources of GPS interference, which is causing Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, to change course. A few observers have referred to this conflict as the first commercial space war, due to the significant role played by Western space sector capabilities in supporting Ukraine's resistance. The same is true for space, as opponents swiftly hunt for ways to undermine any advantage they may have on the battlefield. The evaluation thoroughly examines Russian use of electronic warfare and cyber attacks against space systems, doubts regarding Russian use of laser weapons, and peculiar behavior by a Russian inspection satellite in geosynchronous orbit. While the space lessons learned in Ukraine are still to be written, there may be insights to glean on Moscow's space strategy and doctrine and lessons for the United States to apply to threats in the Indo-Pacific. It said. The deputy head of the Russian Foreign Ministry's Department of Nonproliferation and Arms, Konstantin Vorontsov, is quoted in the paper as saying that quasi-civilian infrastructure may become a legitimate target for retaliation. These Russian assaults against Ukraine's space assets demonstrate how the outcome of future conflicts will be determined by counter-space weapons. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, noted that more than 60% of its unmanned aerial vehicle monitoring missions had experienced GPS signal interference, including in areas just 25 kilometers from the OSCE base's contact line. This was before Russia started its military operations in Ukraine. Unprotected civilian GPS signals were exploited by these drones as a navigational aid. A commercial space company's radio frequency signal detection verified the GPS interferences. Ukraine's long-range UAV temporarily lost control on February 23, 2022, the day before the war started, as a result of heavy GPS interference. Open-source defense experts at the Janes determined that Russian Kursuka-4 was attacking the Turkish-origin Bayraktar TB2 drone of Ukraine. Russia has continuously used GPS jamming technology during the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Additionally, Russia has blocked Ukraine access to its commercial communications satellite-based command and control systems. To prevent connectivity between the Viasat Communications K-SAT network and its hundreds of ground terminals, Russia launched a hack on February 24, 2022. Just an hour prior to Russian soldiers attacking Ukraine that day, there was a cyber attack. The cyber attacks were directed at the Ukrainian government and its armed forces, which are also Viasat clients. Through the satellite downlink, they broke into a virtual private network and installed malware called Wiper that damaged terrestrial modems. However, more Viasat users in Europe suffered as a result of the attacks. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation and CISA consequently requested that commercial satellite communications companies increase the security and resilience of their networks. Ukraine hurried to SpaceX and Elon Musk for assistance in restoring its connectivity via commercial LEO broadband. Starlink terminals restored internet access for the Ukrainian government and people 4 days later. Since then, as Eurasian Times has frequently reported, Russian attacks on Starlink ground terminals to obstruct Ukrainian communications have persisted. Even the European Union Aviation Safety Agency (ESA) acknowledged that the problem of global navigation satellite systems, GNSS, jamming and/or potential spoofing has worsened in geographical areas surrounding the conflict zone and other locations in March 2022. Since February 24, 2022, GNSS interference has increased in 4 important geographic areas: the Kaliningrad region, surrounding the Baltic Sea and neighboring states, eastern Finland, the Black Sea, and the eastern Mediterranean area near Cyprus, Turkey, Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, as well as northern Iraq. These reports came from Eurocontrol, the network of analysts, and open-source data reports, which ESA analyzed. There have been rumors of the usage of the Krasuka 4, RB-109A, Belina, R-330ZH Citadel, Borisoglebs 2, Tirada 2, and other ground-based electronic warfare systems in Ukraine. ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites have been widely deployed during tactical operations in Ukraine, according to the SIZE study. It was unexpected, nevertheless, that Russia had not used any anti-space weaponry to reduce this Ukrainian advantage. According to the paper, however, there have been no claims that Russia has used directed energy against satellites in its military operations in Ukraine that have been objectively validated. The Zadira weapon, which has been unveiled by Russian officials, is reported to be more potent and destructive than its Parazet counterpart, a ground-based satellite laser. The Sokol Echelon, an airborne laser system that is a resurrected Soviet-era program, is another boasted capability. It is said to be capable of attacking satellites in LEO. Neither of these capabilities has been employed in the Ukrainian conflict despite the high volume of remote sensing satellites and other platforms that are providing data and intelligence on Russian troop positions to the Ukrainian military. The report said,